Guys, it has finally happened. The 2025 wave, which you have definitely not seen any pictures of before, has finally been officially revealed by LEGO, which means I can finally talk about these sets. And let me tell you, after years of getting some quite frankly mid-winter waves over the past few years, this is one of the best ones in a long time, so I am very excited to see how these sets stack up. The Ninja Spinjitzu Temple is our annual overpriced junior set, being $40 with 158 pieces, which isn't unusual for your junior set, but it's still overpriced. As a set though, I think this is actually pretty good, especially for junior standards, and I think the minifigure section here is good as well. But yeah, I don't like junior sets, and this set is way overpriced, so to the bottom it goes. The Dragon Spinjitzu spinners are the new gimmick set for 2025, and they look pretty cool. The best way that I can describe these is literally just a Lego Beyblade. I mean, if you look at the spinner piece and you look at a Beyblade, they look incredibly similar, especially the bottom half, which, obviously is how they launch. And speaking of which, the way that these work is actually pretty simple. There's a button on the back that you just push and it launches it through this new specialized launcher piece. So basically, if you just imagine the X1 Ninja Charger function, it's basically just that, but for a spinner. My only concern for these sets is how easy the launching function actually is going to be to use, because if you can't get a good grip on the sides of this thing, I could easily see the spinner getting stuck in the launcher or just losing a lot of speed on its way out. Now in terms of the minifigures, I think these sets are great there as well. In the Kai and Sora sets, you do get this cool new dragon piece, and you also get a Dragonian minifigure to battle with. And the Kai one actually does come with an exclusive hood mold with the gold, but the Arin, Sora, and Roz minifigures all come in other sets. And I do like the new hood mold, but I do think it's kind of weird that only the Kai one is exclusive. As for the Lloyd, Roz, and Arin set, that one does have less minifigures, but it does come with this structure build, which I do like, and I especially like the use of those new gold dragon pieces here, which is actually the same piece that's used on the side for the transparent parts on the spinner, so it's cool to see that piece is already being used in different ways. Lloyd's Pullback race car is a mostly normal set, except for the fact that it has this pullback system integrated into it. Now, this is something that LEGO's actually been doing in Technic sets for quite a few years now, but I think this is actually the first system set to do it, and I know for a fact it's the first Ninjago set to do it. And it's actually a lot better than I thought it'd be. The front of this set is very normal. It sort of has this F1-like shaping, which, I guess that does make sense for LEGO in 2025, but once you get to the back of this set, that's where it becomes a little bit different, because it is just this pullback piece. And when I say it's just the pullback piece, I mean that quite literally, because they pretty much did nothing to cover this piece up at all. Like, okay, I guess they put the hook pieces on the top, but from the sides of this build, there is really nothing there at all, which does surprise me, because even though I don't actually think it looks that bad, basically every other set that has ever used this piece has built around it in some way, so it just makes this set feel a little bit incomplete. Also, it doesn't really help that this set does feel a little bit overpriced at $25. And since this set does have no exclusive minifigures or collectibles, if you don't want this set or you just want a better price, you aren't really missing out on anything while you wait for a sale. Lloyd's Green Forest Dragon reminds me a lot of the Ryu set from last year, using the exact same head mold and just being an overall very similar size and build to that set, but there are a couple key differences. First off, there's these new large wing pieces that they're using, which I do think look kind of cool. I do wish that they would have had some sort of print or dual molding like they've done with other pieces like this in the past, but to be fair, that might be a little bit too much to ask for in a basic $20 set like this. Similar to that Ryu set, the head mold here is going to be hollow from the bottom, which is something some people aren't going to like, but I will say I really do love the eye print on this piece here, and I also really like the trans green chi slopes spread throughout the body. It really just gives this a sort of energy vibe that otherwise would not have been there, and I think it adds a lot to the set. Speaking of which, this set really does a great job with the small details, like these rider chains on the front for Lloyd that we almost never see on small dragon sets like this, and also this flag on the back of the saddle build. I just really feel like the designer took every piece that they could get and they maximized it, which is honestly just so great to see. Also, this set does come with this new yellow dragon baby. I'm not exactly sure what the story significance is going to be, but it's cool to be seeing new versions of that piece. Speaking of which, this set is only $20, which, even though it does only come with 128 pieces, I actually don't think it's a horrible value, considering that there are a ton of larger specialized molds in this set that you would not normally see. Zane's mech battlesuit is pretty much just the J mech battle set from last year, but it is a little bit better in my opinion. The main difference between those two sets is that this set is a lot bigger and bulkier with slightly taller and wider legs, a wider torso, and bulkier arms. But I am curious though to see how the wider torso affects the movement of the arms, because you can pretty clearly see that it comes out right in front of the ball joint where the shoulder attaches, so it's definitely going to make it harder to move the arm forward. The other difference is that this set only has 3 minifigures while J-Mech had 4, but the minifigures here are really good. This is now the cheapest way to get Wildfire, although it is not a new design. It's also the cheapest way to get Zane, who seems to be the focus of this season, and most importantly, you get our first member of the Forbidden Five, being Drix, who is exclusive to this set and is just such a great minifigure to get in only a $10 set. So even though I do think that Lloyd Dragon was a better build, I think this set has way better minifigures and it's overall a much better value. Now this is yet another set that's going to remind you of something we've seen before, because this is basically the Kai Mech Rider set, but now with a jet. And like that set, I think this set is kind of hilarious, but it's also just so fun. I mean, where other than Ninjago are you going to see a set like this? We got literally a mech riding a jet. It is absolute peak Ninjago insanity. So let's start with the mech here, which is unsurprisingly nothing new. It's just another Evo style mech. Nothing really bad about it, but nothing stand out either. The only interesting thing here for me is that it does have a new sword piece, and that piece is pretty similar, at least in terms of shaping, to this other sword piece we've had, but it does have this more textured look, and it is dual molded, which does make it feel a little bit more elemental, so that is cool to see. The jet build, this feels kind of more like the Chondrite Copter or, this Monkey Kid Cloud Jet set, but it's obviously a lot bigger than those to accommodate the size of this mech, and I actually like this build a lot. The wings here are adjustable, and I actually think they look even better in this more neutral position than the angle spot that they show on the box, but I guess we'll see how that looks in person. And then of course, fully combined, I think this looks fine. It's definitely not as seamless as the bike version, considering that the legs on this one, they're just kind of dangling off, so it kind of looks like Kai's just going to be hanging on for dear life while flying this thing, but it's good enough. Also, minifigures here are good. You do get another Dragonian minifigure, which I haven't really talked too much about in this video, but I do really like their designs, especially the new dragon armor pieces. I think they're just really cool. Now, once again, this is yet another overpriced set with 355 pieces and being $50, but I do think that when you actually have the set in person and in hand, the actual size of it and the overall volume is not going to feel that bad for $50, so it's not as bad as it sounds on paper. But when you compare this to the other $50 set from this wave, you can tell that there is just so much more put into that set than there is in this one. Now this set is without a doubt the best set of the wave in terms of minifigures. Right off the bat, let's talk about the one everyone wants to hear about, which is the returning Moro. Now, from a story perspective, this is kind of crazy, but let's save the theories for another time and just focus on the minifigure, because this minifigure is pretty great. I really love the inclusion of the sand green. That is something new, but I think it looks great. He does have this transparent arm with the spring green handpiece that looks ripped straight out of Possession, which obviously that makes sense because this is a Moro. And he also has this new face print, which looks cool as well. Honestly, I just never expected to see another Moro figure, at least not in this context, but I think this new version looks great, and it's going to be 100% one of the main reasons people are buying this set. Also included here is Rogue, aka Evil J, who has another updated design which I think looks pretty good. And we also get a different version of the Dragonian. This one has a mohawk and a lot less armor, but I do like to see the variety between those. And then of course there is a Nia minifigure here as well. Now for the build. The thing that I like here the most is this function to pull down the bridge. It's very simple, all you do is just pull this Technic piece and the bridge falls down, but it is really reminiscent of the Lava Falls set, which I think is pretty cool as a callback, intentional or not. Also, shout out to the skeleton down here. I also really like the Dragonian mask that just sits on the top of this. I think that's a cool detail, and I also like that face build that they have on the front. In terms of the other features of this, there is a cage, so there's a weapon rack, and there is this rope to swing figures around from, which is kind of cool. But there is also this one weird spinner-like thing in the middle, which I have no idea what this is supposed to be. It does use that new blade piece in a different color, so that's cool, but the whole thing just looks very out of place to me with the rest of the set. Now, there is actually another set that's coming out in March that has not been officially revealed yet, but that set actually looks a lot like this build, at least in terms of the color scheme, and it fits in way more with that March set than it does actually with this set, so maybe they're related in some way. There's probably some story reason here, but just in terms of this set, I think it looks kind of weird. And once again, I do have to mention the price, which I feel like I've done a million times already in this vehicle, but if it's overpriced, I have to call it out. And this one is once again overpriced, being $40 at 105 pieces. And this is not a very substantial build, at least I don't feel like it's a substantial build for $40. So I don't really feel like that price point was earned here. But for what it is, this is a good set with some great minifigures. Zane's Ultra Combo Mech is the biggest set of the wave, and it is the second time we've seen a Combo Mech set, and I actually really like this one. And even though it is the second time we've seen a set like this, it is completely different from the other one. First off, let's talk about all the different things that this can split into. The first thing is that the legs can turn into this car, which I actually think looks really good and surprisingly pretty big. The next one is that the arms can split into a jet, and I do want to mention that it actually does look like this requires a little bit of disassembly in terms of just having to pull off these front sections of the arms from this black section and then reconnecting those to the front and back of the jet. So that is something that you didn't really have to do with the other combo mech, so I did think it was worth mentioning. There also is a new bigger version of Ryu in this set, which I do think it was smart for LEGO to include him here instead of making another dedicated Ryu set so soon after the last one, because having two of them on shows at the same time would kind of feel a little redundant. And then there is the last build, which is quite literally just Zane. Not a mech, literally Zane. So we'll see what that means story-wise, because this is quite the difference from the normal minifigure, but fully combined, this set does look great as well. I think the Ryu in particular brings a lot to it and fits in really well, and I'm just a big fan of the colors here in general. And even the Zane here in the middle I think looks good, which is great because that is definitely something that could have been kind of awkward, but it's not. The only part of this fully combined version where I think you can look at it and immediately know, like, oh yeah, this is obviously a combo mech, is the legs, because the tires for the car stick out really far back and they definitely look a little bit out of place compared to everything else. But once again, I think the combo feature here is done really well, so I don't really mind that the tires stick out because it serves a great function. Speaking of great, let's talk about the minifigures. We do have some exclusives in here, but let's start with everyone's favorite being Pixel, who is now returning for Season 3 with a new design. I do really like how she still has the Samurai X logo, but she also is starting to lean back into the purple from her original design. That's something that I think is really cool. Cole is also exclusive here, and I really like his new hood piece with the orange contrasting very well with the black. Sora, I think, is the only disappointing minifigure here because while she does have the new hood, she's still using the exact same print she used from Season 1, which, I mean, it's been 2 years. They can update Sora. Also, we do have both versions of the Dragonians here, but last and certainly not least, we have for the first time Noct coming in a set, and he looks great. Also, only $100 for this set, so I think it is a great value, a great build. It's got great minifigures, can't really go wrong with this one. And my favorite set for the Winter 2025 wave is Roz and Arin's Superstorm Jet, and to be honest with you, it is not very close. This set is just so good. The build is great. It sort of gives me a Ninjago X-Wing vibe, which I think is a cool idea, and I really like the small details like these trans blue pieces around the thrusters, the blades wrapping around the front, and the slight angling that's done on the back half of the build. But this also does have the ability to split into 3 separate vehicles, which did surprise me because obviously the dragon comes off the top, everyone could see that coming, but the cockpit section actually comes off and the middle section of this becomes its own vehicle, which is pretty cool, especially because I didn't even notice at first when I saw the set that there was another cockpit section because it just blends in so well. The only nitpick I have here is that I do wish that the purple and pink blade piece was attached to the dragon because I think it would look a little bit better when you detach the dragon and the jet if those pieces weren't just kind of awkwardly there on the jet, but it's not really a big deal. Unlike Sora, Arin actually does have a new minifigure, which I think looks great. I really love the new pink dragon print there and the black sleeve. I think it just looks super cool and fits the new arc for his character. And Lord Roz, unfortunately, is the same as we've seen before, but this is now a cheaper way to get him. And at only $50, I think this is a very solid value.